Hello, and welcome to Frederick's Garage, your favorite location for the eradication of oxidation on your restoration or your transportation, and home of the Bel Airror, the resto-mod with the rusto-bod. Yes, I am sitting inside the passenger side rear wheel well of the Bel Airror, a place where I've spent far too much time recently. But the good news is, it's done. So stick around and you'll see how we did it. Now that I have the front of the wheel well buttoned up, I need to come to the back here and figure out how to fit it in a little bit better. You can see where I've put a mark where I need to slit that so it'll engage with the other panel a bit. Got to figure out if I'm going to butt weld or lap weld that. And I think what I might do to start is tack the two patches together, this patch and this patch. That way I won't necessarily need this placement plate. That way I'm a little closer to working on the surfaces I'm going to be welding. Ultimately, I'd like to plug weld this piece to this piece, which is how the original car is constructed, just to mimic the look. But for now, I just want it to stay in place so I can fit up the quarter again and make sure that this lip is where it's supposed to be as I form this upper part. One other thing, I think this is perhaps in a little bit too far, so I need to make sure that structure comes out a little bit, because when I put up the new quarter, I have a little bit of a low spot in here, especially when I compare it to the piece of trim that goes here. The trim is pretty straight and pretty rigid, so that helps me determine if the quarter panel's in or not. There's not a whole lot of the structure to the quarter panel without the wheel well in place. So we've got the fender well patch held up against the quarter panel. I'm going to tack in the edge, the flange if you will, in a more suitable position. Then I'll take it back off, fit up the quarter panel, and potentially then weld it on the car, or weld the joint on the car. Not that I'll weld the patch fast, but weld it, use the car to hold it, and then we'll take it off again and check out how it fits. One step at a time. Before I weld in the rear inner panel, or the rear part of the wheel well, I'm doing kind of a dry run with the trim. I guess you could call this a dress rehearsal. What I've found is there's a little bit of warp in the top edge of the replacement panel. So I'm gonna try and hammer and dolly that a little bit to get it a little bit nicer. It's certainly not unmanageable with a little bit of filler, but if I can make it a little closer, all the better. The fender skirt's fitting nicely. The trim, while it's not bolted on entirely, everything lines up. I'm happy. So let's put the gravel guard up in place just to finish up the look, just to double check that everything is kosher. So here we go. I don't want to have to go to the trouble to bolt this guy on. Plus the one with the clips on it is the bent one. The straight one doesn't have the clips, so I'll cut them over later. So anyway, there we go. There we have it. I'd say that's one fully dressed Bel Air. I do have to fine tune the in and out placement of the skirt just a little bit. I'll bend the tabs on the top to get that just the way I want it. But all in all, I'm pretty happy. Getting closer to welding this up every day. Of course, I have one more side to work on, but anyway, could be worse. We're getting there. I've got this rear panel welded up, a lot of stitch welds there, welded up on the outside. I'm going to grind it down a bit, see how it looks on the inside, and let's see what else is going on. Oh, right, up here, I was having a little trouble with the waviness of the quarter panel on there, so I made sure that this was pushed out into the right position before I welded in. And let's see, if we take this piece of chrome trim here, chrome stainless steel, weld it, set it up here where it belongs, and we can see that that everything's pretty flat. The stock panel is pretty flat. So basically, what's left of the stock panel, basically we have the wheel well, the inner wheel well in place. Proper placement. So any residual waviness on the new panel is in the new panel itself. So I'm going to have to do a little hammer and dolly work, I think, to make the edge in the new panel a little straighter through this section. I think the waviness is a function of the fender lip and how much stretching was done to actually shrinking there and then stretching on the inner edge to accomplish that. And I think it affected the upper part of the panel, but that's work for another day. So I've got this rear section fitted up, hopefully for the last time. I've trimmed back the stock wheel well, or the original wheel well, a little further. To the plan is to slit this as I weld it, kind of a cut and butt, but I'm not tacking it first. I'm just cutting it and pushing it into place with vice grips. And one point of contention here is where these two pieces meet, the trunk extension, get in there, the trunk extension and the trunk drop off. There seems to be a little bit of variation on where that can go. So I'm going to do a final fitment of the outer quarter and screw this back section in place where I think it needs to be. That way I'll know how to place this a little more thoroughly or effectively when I weld it. Because the position of that, well, I can shift it a little bit, that could vary the shape of the rear of the quarter as it fits the original part of the car, and I don't want that. I want to fit it as best I can to the original part of the car and then move this as need be to accommodate that, even if I have to slit things or bend things at this late juncture. That's the plan. Let's get the outer quarter on and see how we do. As they say, the aftermarket panels are close, but they're never just right. So here we go. So we've got the quarter panel fitted up again. We did verify that this edge was straight with the piece of trim. That way the wheel well patch sections are in about the right location. I fitted up the skirt again, and I put screws in the bottom here to secure the quarter panel to the inner panel temporarily. And up here, of course, up in here where I suspected there might be a little trouble, I had to reshape the trunk extension slightly. We used the persuader here. It's a dulled chisel-like thing. Not sure what its true purpose is, but it gets in there nicely and moves sheet metal for me. So we're gonna put in a couple of plug welds, and of course we're gonna tack the inner portion of the fender right here. We're gonna cut and put a couple tacks in. That way we know that we're on the right track, and then I can take the quarter panel off and weld that up more effectively. All right, wish me luck. Here we go. The modified cut and butt is working okay so far. It's just this slot is or slit is a little bigger than I wanted because I used a fairly large diameter disc. So because that edge wasn't perfectly straight, the disc, of course, made a wider hole. So I've switched to a smaller diameter disc. These are 3/16 inch thickness, but with the smaller diameter, I'm less committed to going in a perfectly straight line, so I should be able to make it a little narrower of a slit going on up that way. And here's what it looks like from the back. You can see I'm peeling up the outer layer, and I might actually weld this up from the inside because it might be a little easier to get to. Haven't done the plug welds here yet, so we're on that next. But I wanted to get this wheel well part in place first, at least tacked in, and then we'll get the other thing welded, at least every other one. Maybe we'll trial fit the quarter panel again. Let's keep going. So I've used a real small disc to get up around this corner, and we've almost completed the cut portion of the cut and butt. I really just lined the pieces up with a screwdriver, although I could get a long vice grip in there to hold the panels together if need be. So let's get a couple more tacks in there, and then we'll do a couple plug welds and maybe refit the quarter. So far so good. Here's the cutoff. We're getting farther along here. Looks like I got the last little bit to cut right there. And just wanted to add, I'm using a pretty low voltage and pretty slow wire speed. When I've welded up the inner fender wells to put the trunk pan in, the material that the inner fenders are made out of seems to be crappy. I guess maybe it's softer, so it's more malleable because those panels have a lot of shape to them. Probably General Motors didn't want to wear out the dies, so they used an inferior metal. The stuff melts incredibly easily, even if it's not rusted thin. So I guess you could say I've learned my lesson, and that's why it's set so low. And even at that, it warps a bit and still burns through. Go figure. I've fitted up the quarter again, and the skirt, and everything seems to be lined up properly underneath. So I'll continue to weld it in. The middle section here, I'm not going to weld in just yet because I have some extra tabs, retaining tabs for the fender skirt I need to fabricate and potentially install on that piece before I put it up in there. Don't know how I'd get to it to weld otherwise. Anyway, looks pretty good. Obviously have some spaces to fill, but that's the beauty of MIG welding, I guess. So here's the inner rear fender well patch. It's welded in, ground, re-welded, re-ground. Hopefully I didn't grind it too thin. I have to stop myself from trying to grind into metal finish perfection, and therein lies the danger. But I think we're okay. I think I dodged a bullet this time. Here's what it looks like from the back. The tape is there to keep the grinding dust from dropping down between the two panels. The panels overlap. It's kind of mimics the factory installation. I've also gone and welded in this drop-off, the trunk drop-off. I welded it to the trunk extension, plug welded from this side, and then also welded from this side under the trunk. I did have some Cleco holes to weld up. In fact, I think there might be another hole or two in here for me to weld up. I just did the initial grind. I have to do the final grind. Down here, let's get the light on there properly. Let's try it that way, that's better. Yeah, down here to get it to fit, I had to slit this section and then build that up with weld. And then down in the very bottom here, there was a gap. The trunk extension that I made didn't match the trunk drop-off, so there was a hole left there, and I had to weld in a little triangle. Also plug welded the trunk drop-off to the lip on the quarter panel, what's left of the factory quarter panel here. What's showing there, the light through, that's a screw hole that I used to mount the new quarter until I cut this off, decide where to cut that off for install. Under here you can see the little triangle that I had to fit in to fill that hole. I haven't ground it yet. There's also the quarter panel edge plug welded to the trunk drop off. So there's the under the car look. The gap up here, sorry, I'm not quite sure how to point. The gap up here between the trunk extension and the trunk drop off, I'm gonna have to fill that with some seam sealer. So it doesn't, the aftermarket panels don't fit quite as well as the factory panels. So seam sealer is the order of the day. Otherwise, pretty happy with how things turned out. Do a little more grinding and get some paint on there and I'll be happy. So here are the two tabs, fully installed, plug welded. I'm about ready to weld this center section in now. So just the final fit up. Passenger side of the car, of course, and everybody's happy. Looks like a win. So I drilled 1/8" pilot holes throughout and then followed up with 7/32 bit, which is smaller than I'm going to drill for the plug welds. But the goal here, before I fully weld in the inner fender patch, wheel well patch, is to make sure that I have good gap there. In other words, little or no gap that I can do a plug weld later on. I don't want to get the quarter mounted then find out that it's too big of a gap there. So I'm going to try and bend that down a little bit with vice grips, make sure I can pinch it tight as if I was going to weld. These holes are big enough that I can see what's under there. And assuming that's okay, then I can tack in this middle section, actually in here, tack in this middle section of the wheel well patch and continue to fine tune and fit the quarter. Obviously the quarter is going to come on and off a couple more times, but just a sanity check here. All right, let's go. So what I was able to prove is with the aid of vice grips in a few cases, the inner lip and the outer lip are close enough that I can successfully plug weld when the time comes. What I am going to do though is to tack these corners in both here and here. I'm going to put vice grips in and pull these together for the moment, just to more acutely position this this center section, the inner wheel well. The front section and rear sections are already permanently in there. It's just the joints where the middle piece fits, and of course across the top here where I'm probably going to just butt weld that. That needs to be completed. In fact, what I'll do is just tack that in place, and then I'll finish welding it when the quarter panel is off and the original quarter is trimmed further for the final welding of the outer quarter panel. So that's the plan. Here we go. So let's roll under the car and see how it looks now that the center section is tacked in. Let's try and adjust the light here. So you can see, got a couple of tacks along the top there, a couple of tacks on this edge, and a couple of tacks on this back edge here. And you can also see that the fender skirt is fitting up nicely. So I think we're on track to continue fitting the quarter. These two holes here are a little too far away to plug weld, so I've put a slit in and pulled the lip down, but after I mocked the quarter panel up again, yeah, it's close enough here to weld, but it breaks away. I'm afraid I'll melt a hole. So what I need to do is cut a slit here and move this whole edge, about this much of it, in towards the wheel. So what I'm going to do is just put a tack on this outer edge, because that's about the curve that I want, the diameter, if you will, and then I can bring this outer edge in a little more, change the angle, and of course I'll have to fill it with weld, maybe get my welding spoon back there. So using a thin cutting disc, a 3/32, and I'm using a worn one that's pretty small because this is a fairly tight corner to negotiate, or not corner, but curve. All right, let's get on this, see how we make out. I had to undo the outer tack that I put in because I couldn't get the shape I wanted. I think this shape's closer. I put a little tack in there till I try the quarter panel back on, see if this is close enough now before I weld it up. So it's close, but I'd say not close enough. Even when I pull a clamp, the outer edge, or I should say the inner edge of the hole touches, that'll weld nicely, but the edge towards the outside of the car, there's a gap. So I think I need to take the quarter back off, slit that a little further, and pull it in towards the front of the car. This one, and to a lesser extent this one. I've got the inner fender well marked, so I can remember which ones they are when the quarter panel's off. Always something, right? So I've saved all the little strips I've cut off of the different thicknesses for just such an emergency. You can see I've got a couple little pieces tacked in. Obviously not going to finish welding and grinding until I've fitted the quarter panel yet again, but there's the gist of it. Just need one more strip down there as filler, and I think we're good to do a light grinding and a refitment and then finish it up. Garage junk. So everything looks really tight now that I have that tacked in. You know, there's a little bit of gap here and there, but vice grips will pull that in nicely without distorting the outer panel. So I think we're in good shape. And I think the cause of the problem is when I built the inner wheel well piece, I had a little too far in, so till I did some final fitting, I pulled it back out, and I think I forced it out, and I think by forcing it out, it caused this edge to move upward. So I could bend the lip a little bit to touch the wheel well, but there was too big of a gap for nice clean plug welds. So anyway, that's my story. Works for me. So I did a pinhole check, welded up the pinholes, then I ran a bead sort of to fill the edge, or kind of stitch weld to fill the edge. Hit it with the rough grinder, and then this curved bastard file. I'm not sure where that bastard went. Anyway, I'm going to weld up the split here, and because it's an edge and it's kind of thin, I need to back it with this copper welding spoon, so I'll just clamp that in with vice grips, and I'll put a little tack across that split, and then we'll mock up the quarter panel again once I've done a preliminary grind on there. Let's go. So everything here is looking good after we did the initial grinding. Haven't done the smoothing out yet, but you know, that's not going to change the dimension at all. So yeah, all the plug welds are real nice and tight. So yeah, it's it's a lot of work, or disappointing to cut up something that was already potentially done. On the other hand, getting the thing most of the way welded on and then finding out that this is a mess, I think that's a worst case scenario. So here we are, on to the next step now. Someday we'll finish. Cheers. While I have a little more room to work, I've welded up the front of the wheel well, just the last little portion, and did a little bit of a cut and butt back here on the rear portion of the wheel well. And up inside here, we've welded up the middle piece, so I just have to weld the screw holes shut. And there's the back portion. Obviously a little bit of grinding to do, But for the most part, the wheel well repair is finished. So there you go. I did get a little bit warm. You can see where the paint's coming off, but given that there's a lot of shape in this structure, I don't think I have to worry about warping. Obviously, I'll fit the quarter panel on one more time before I weld it up, and if anything moved, I'll just cut it and adjust it. So there you have it. All right, here we are under the car, obviously. Wheel well's all welded in. Center piece is butt welded in. And we did a little bit of a cut and butt on the back there. You can see a little bump there where I had to fill a pinhole. Another one up at the top there. Anyway, we're looking pretty good. I'd consider the wheel well all welded up. Just get a little bit of paint on it, maybe clean up the upper metal there. That way I can put the axle back in. But anyway, just striving to get this prerequisite out of the way so I can weld the quarter panel on.